And like a lot of it's in like addition to like the Chili's stuff is so much of it started the same way the band started, which is like a series of jokes that we just allowed to go too far. like wouldn't it be funny? Like, you know, just like.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. My name's Adam, and this is about you, your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new record as well.
Sounds good.
Sweet. Awesome. So first off, where were you born and raised?
I'm from Sacramento, originally, Sacramento, California.
Okay.
So yeah, lived there for first 18 years of my life. Moved down to went to college in Santa Barbara, where I met one of the members who's now no longer with Nekrogoblikon, but that's how I initially joined when I was 19.
Oh, okay.
And then, you know, we all moved to LA like about 5 or 6 years later. So living in LA now.
Right on. I'm originally from San Diego.
Awesome.
I know that. I mean, it's funny because people think California. I recently moved to Nashville, and that's like, from San Diego. Like, oh, so is like if you say like San Francisco or Sacramento, people assume it's like sort of close. I'm like, no, that's like
right.
plus hours in the car. You could drive to like 6 states.
Right. Yeah. People don't realize how big of a state California is.
Yeah. So you grew up in Northern California in Sacramento. Yeah. What was it like growing up in Sacramento?
You know, I can't really point to anything particularly notable. You know, it seemed like it pretty, you know, I grew up like kind of suburban area. Yeah. Like, you know, we wouldn't get shows a whole lot because we weren't like, at least, you know, it's become a little more of a concert market now, but it felt like back then I would drive like 2 hours to San Francisco to see shows. I wanted to see a lot, go out to like,
what's the festival they do out there now?
Aftershock.
Oh, Aftershock. There it is. Yeah. That's rad that's there, right? I mean, the lineup they always get.
Yeah, it is awesome. And I think I think the US is finally starting to kind of pick up where Europe's been for a very long time, which is kind of like creating these insanely huge destination festivals that aren't really located in like a big city, but like it just, you know, but it'll be somewhere where people will drive hours to be there. So it kind of like, I think that's what's starting to finally become popular in America, which is cool.
Because that hasn't been around very long. So I'm sure you're out of Sacramento at that point.
Right. Yeah. I haven't even been to an Aftershock yet. It would be cool to check.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe play one if any.
Right. I was going to say, you guys
watching this.
You guys fit the vibe, obviously, for that lineup.
Thank you. Yeah. I like to think so.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So you traveled you'd have to go San Francisco or Oakland or whatever to see shows, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you get into music?
You know, so the first like music I really enjoyed was like, I never followed bands or anything until I was like 11 or 12, I think 10, around that age. Before that, I was like really into video games. And so I was like, I would like the music that was in video games
game.
And I would buy movie soundtracks and shit. And so I think, and then I discovered bands and stuff. Like I started getting into The Offspring and then like later, like Korn and Metallica and stuff. And I think, but you know, eventually I kind of found my way to metal that musically sounds like it could be video game music as well, I think, you know. And I discovered Children of Bodom in high school, and that felt like it was kind of, it reminded me of something. I didn't know what. I realized it was so many of the melodies kind of were things I'd already liked from video games and the synths and everything.
Yeah.
And so it kind of like, so finding my way to a band like Nekrogoblikon felt like it was par for the course, you know.
That's interesting to think about. Yeah, because there is a lot of similarities in certain metal and like the songs that were in video games, especially back years ago, right?
Yeah, just like those really just great melodies. Like those composers were great, and you know that I feel like it went overlooked for a long time. I think it's starting to pick up more now with all these different niches exploding. But yeah.
Would you say like, is there anything like that stands out as far as like a game or like a movie soundtrack that you bought and were like, oh, like this song was on it and I heard this song in the game or in the movie and I bought it? Because like some video like Madden or like FIFA games are like notorious for having these like great soundtracks, right?
Right. Yeah. Like Tony Hawk. That game,
it was Tony Hawk. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely heard a lot of like in terms of discovering bands. Like Tony Hawk, I think was like the first time I heard what bands I discovered. I think like Suicidal Tendencies I first heard on Tony Hawk. I think they were on it.
Yeah, like Dead
It
Kennedys.
like they would be
those
on
like
it.
early punk rock bands that were on there.
Yeah.
Primus,
like first
I think, was on that first one.
Oh, I loved Primus. Yeah, Primus. I was a huge fan of Primus. So yeah, I think
Tony Hawk. That's
them on
cool.
there, yeah.
What about playing guitar? Like, what was the first instrument you learned? Was it guitar?
So first instrument I learned was piano. At like my parents put me in like piano lessons when I was 6. So I had some kind of, I didn't have I didn't have a passion for it yet. It was just kind of like, all right, something I have to do. But I'm glad that I started that early with music. So I feel like by the time I picked up bass and guitar when I was like 12, there was something that felt familiar about picking out notes and learning stuff and I already learned how to read rhythms and everything. And so I felt like it gave me a little bit of a head start. So
for sure. How long did you play piano?
I was kind of on and off for it because I didn't really want to, I was forced to.
Of course.
So I'd like quit and then come back to my parents like, oh, let's try it again. All right. Yeah.
That was my next question. If you like, if you felt like it helped, and it sounds like it did, as far as like now in your career.
That's how I interpret it. Who knows? Maybe it didn't actually, and I thought it did. But
I would think it would, right?
Yeah,
You're learning kind of the base of everything. I mean, the piano can play anything, right? Both harmonies and the bass lines and everything.
Right. Yeah. And it was because you have to kind of like, you have to have a certain degree of kind of limb independence with it, kind of, because you're what you'd be playing on the bass clef could be just completely different than what you're doing like a lead on the right hand. So I feel like that probably helped out too, especially, bass and guitar are each just one of those.
Sure. Yeah. It's a whole band in one instrument.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In a sense. So you said bass and guitar. What was first, the bass or the guitar?
I first picked up bass because it felt like everyone else was playing guitar. And I'm like, well, I don't know a lot of bassists, so I'm gonna.
Okay.
But then I just naturally I felt like I'd start especially getting into bands that were doing solos and leads and stuff. I was like, man, I want to do more of that. So so I think like a year or two after I picked up bass, I also got a guitar, and then ended up playing guitar obviously more like professionally. I still love bass though. So still love playing both.
Did you play in any bands in high school or prior to that?
I was like, I'd have bands that were like, we'd like get together and jam and maybe write a couple songs. Nothing in high school that ever got to play live at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I never got to that point. There were too many disagreements with people I worked with. And then like when I got to college, I like started a metalcore band that played maybe like 2 or 3 shows, something like that.
Okay.
And then very shortly after, I got into Nekrogoblikon, which had existed for about 2 months prior to me joining. So,
okay.
So I've been with it since then. Yeah.
Since then. Yeah. So you went to UC Santa Barbara, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you go there for music or just go there because you wanted to go there?
I wanted to go there. My parents didn't want me. They were highly against me majoring in music. So they're like, well, you can't make money doing that.
Of course. We're not sending to a UC school to learn music.
Right. And they're not entirely wrong. but I always wanted to play music. I was hoping that like when I got there, I would meet other musicians and especially it was like a beach town. So you didn't have a lot of metal happen. It was like almost no metal. So I had this like huge need to find out anyone I could find that listened to metal at all and could even kind of play. I was like, let's start a band together. We got to do something. And that I eventually found my way to Tim, who had started the band with Nikki, our singer. And he's like, yeah, we want to turn. They had done the first album, Goblin Island, just the 2 of them. And they'd released it on MySpace at the time.
Oh, okay.
And they were like, we want to make this a full band. And, so I got invited to play. And so I joined in February 2007. So that's, this month, that makes it 15 years that I've been
wow. So, that's incredible. That's incredible. I know UC Santa Barbara pretty well. Did you live in like Isla Vista?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. That's quite the city.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Was that where you're playing in your band? Like, would you guys play shows there and stuff?
Yeah, we would do backyard shows all the time, and we would just whenever there was live shows there, you'd normally walk by, you'd hear reggae and whatnot, and then we were just these weirdos. Fucking, we'd buy a keg of beer just to get people to come to the show. We're like, no one's gonna come to just see a band for no reason. So we're like, all right, we'd all pitch in, get a keg there, and be like, hey, there's a keg here. Also, we'll be playing music,
Right.
And it kind of picked up. It became this kind of odd phenomenon where just this random, like, Nordic sounding goblin metal band just in the middle of this beach town full of reggae. And it started to kind of develop an audience, and we started having like people coming out. Like, we have like 200-300 people out in a backyard, just like chugging beers and knocking each other out in a pit and stuff. So it developed a kind of traction. It didn't, it took a long time for that to go anywhere beyond that. But, even initially it had this pull to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally different than anything I would think when I think of Santa Barbara, especially like Isla Vista. It's like, it's like acoustic guitars and like surfing and all and that culture. And then to have a band like yours be there, but what a brilliant idea to have the keg, because the weird thing about people that are listening and don't know Isla Vista, basically you can be walking down the street. If you hear like a party going on, it's just like open door. You just like, hey, you just walk in and
it's complete chaos. Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to be invited. You just really, like, the doors are open and you just walk in. You're like, maybe somebody will be asking for a few bucks at the door to drink off their keg, but it's not like anything organized.
No one was really vetted.
Right.
Just like, all right, come on in.
That's so rad though. Okay. So you guys did that through college. Once how did you meet the guys that started? How did you meet Tim?
So I met Tim. The dude I had started a metalcore band with, his name was Dan. And so he and Tim were kind of the same class. And they had known each other. They had been in a different band together. So with such a small kind of handful of metalheads in the city, it was kind of quite incestuous. If you worked with someone who was into metal, they had worked with at least someone else. So it was through Dan was like the link between me and Tim.
Okay.
And I remember the first, like, I joined the band, and with 2 weeks before the first gig, anyway, I had like 5 songs to learn, and just kind of like just trial by fire, just jumped right in, so we had we kind of stayed at that kind of local college level, for about, we moved to LA in like 2000. What year was it? I think 2011. 2011 we moved to LA, and that was kind of like, both me and Nikki both we weren't even sure what was going to happen with the band. We wanted to keep doing it, but we knew that we wanted to work in the music industry in some capacity. We were for sure wanted to do music. So I started interning at a record label where I got hired, and Nikki kind of went to work for publishers and worked in studios. And so we kind of always had high hopes for the band. We always put a lot of effort into it, had a lot of fun doing it. But I don't think we ever expected it to be where it is now,
Right. Wow. Okay. So you finished college at UC Santa Barbara and then moved to LA, regardless if the band was going to continue on or not. You went down there. To work in the industry.
Right. I knew that, hey, like, we always hope for the best with the band, but it's like, I know for sure, I definitely, like, music is the industry for me. This is what I care about. So I'm obsessed with it. So I'll find a place for myself here somewhere.
Okay. So, okay. When did the live show turn into like what it is now? I mean, when did you get, you have the Goblin and like everything that's kind of happening within the show itself? Like, what that probably, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, was that happening when you were at Isla Vista and playing those shows in Santa Barbara?
Not at all. No. And it was interesting. So like, we always, because, the band, like Tim and Nikki's idea to start the band was as like a joke. Like, they thought it was a funny thing. Like, what if we just made an album just about goblins? And Tim had a bunch of leftover riffs from his another death metal band he had, and so like he wanted to start another project, and they just over the summer they just like made this album, just like very tongue in cheek. And so thematically the thing was always like felt like a meme to us, starting out, like it was just a joke, but but musically we cared. Like we had, like we put a lot of work into practicing. We made ourselves a lot better of musicians to write and record better and better material as we went on. but there was like live, there was like when we do battle the bands and everything, there would always be like, well, you guys are kind of half-assing this goblin thing. Maybe you guys should dress as goblins. And we're like, you know, I could see they were right. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. But it was so not us to like suddenly just be completely, like
come out of a suit, right?
Like we have to always be breaking the fourth wall in some kind of way. And like, there was, for us to just kind of be totally like drink our own Kool-Aid and just wear goblin. It felt like it was betraying the initial like reason for the band starting. So we kind of didn't know what to do. But we're like, well, let's just keep playing shows. There's a little bit of interest in us. So, and we're having fun doing this. And then we played a show that like, and there was like 10 people there, like up in the valley. And one of my coworkers came to the show, and he brought his neighbor, who was a good friend of his, named Brandon Dermer, who he was an up and coming director, and saw the show and just was floored, loved it. Came up to me after the show. He's like, I don't know how this room isn't totally packed. I really want to make you guys a music video. Like, like, what's your email? I'm going to send you my reel. And, he sent it to me, and it was like, he had already been working with a comedian, John Lajoie, and he'd already had some viral success with comedic videos. So I was like, I felt like, dude, this guy's like right up our alley. He understands, the kind of the humor side, the self-awareness side, but he's really into the music. And so he eventually pitched us this idea of he was like, at first I was thinking maybe making some kind of Goblin War video, but I realized how self-aware you guys are and where you're coming from. And I was like, thinking maybe we just have this kind of a goblin who like exists in the human world and just like has a day job, and he goes to work, and like he has a crush on the girl, and like he can't get his shit together, and he's, and when he called and pitched that idea, I was like, that's totally in line with what I feel like this band represents. And he knocked the video completely out of the park, and he pulled every favor he had, and that video went viral. And then suddenly we had this goblin that was just this emblem for us. So I was like, all right, well, let's try bringing this guy out live now. Let's bring.
So it started with the music video.
It started with the music video, yeah. So like the music was there, and so that was already our second album that the song was for. So we already established our style musically and everything, but this kind of contextualized everything. And so suddenly we're just like, have this goblin, and so we're like, yeah, what do we name him? Like, yeah, John Goblikon. That sounds funny. Yeah. So suddenly we had to like, we then melded the band to this new character that suddenly, it communicated so much so quickly just with that goblin's character. And it's like, yeah, this is kind of like, this represents the kind of dudes we are. This whole funny gimmick thing.
Yeah.
So that's really where like the Nekrogoblikon we're known as today. That started in 2012 with that video.
Okay. And how quick that was with No One Survives. This is the video.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, how did you, because the same guy plays the goblin to now, right? I mean,
Dave Rispoli.
Yeah, he's still the goblin. And was did the director like cast him, or like how did you find him to kind of, because what he does is so good. I mean, I was even watching the show that, like, the talk show that he's got Bobby Lee on, or even like Caden Cross, who was in that first video, and just like how funny and how quick he is. Yeah. Like, that was he like casted in? Like, how'd you find him?
So Brandon and David had already been working together on a few other projects. And I know, like, they both had lived in Chicago before. I don't know if they knew each other back then or not. I'm fuzzy on that. But they had already begun working together, and had a good working relationship. And when Dermer thought of the idea for this goblin, he's like, Dave was his first call. He's like, it's got to be Dave for this. So it worked out for them, worked out for us, because the video also launched Brandon's career to a huge extent, because that got him discovered by Diplo. And suddenly he started, now he's done music videos for such a variety of artists now. And he has a films coming out, like he's doing really well. And it's interesting that this one video kind of launched both the band and him and Dave too. Yeah. So it was really a monumental moment, definitely,
For sure. Wow. Well, what's interesting, or what says something about the band, is like if you guys would have put this together and the band wasn't any good, right? I mean, like you said, we're kind of like a jokey, like meme, was like a meme band in the beginning, like that was kind of the
Yeah.
idea, but that only works as if the music works and the music is good and that the people playing the music is good. Because if your band sucked and you're like, oh, we got this great idea, people would be like not interested. You know, it would never land.
Right. And thank you. And I do feel that way too, where it's like if for some reason, because you know, I think you look at a band like us and you're like, okay, clear, like it almost looks like, oh, they just thought of the Goblin gimmick idea first and then decided to write music around it. And I feel like, because that's what I would think if I was looking as an outsider. But I think if we had done it that way, I feel like the music wouldn't have been as kind of uniquely inspired itself, and it would have been a little too try hard. So I think like the way it all came about with kind of meeting Brandon and him kind of providing this missing piece while we were already making music just for the love of it and the fun of it. I think that's what made it sustainable, I think. Because I think we could have done any song with that video concept and it would have blown up, but the ability to still be here, putting out music and continuing to develop a fan base and becoming a bigger and bigger band, I don't think we would have been able to do that if our heart wasn't with the music from the beginning, you know?
Yeah, you wouldn't have. You probably wouldn't have been able to keep the longevity because it would have been the video. Yeah. Oh, there was this one viral video that was really funny, and then you know, no one cares anymore, right? The next viral video hits, or the next thing happens.
Yeah, exactly. And a viral video is like no one, because there's so many videos we've all seen. They're like, oh, that video's great, but you know, it doesn't cause you to be invested in a band. You know, it's just kind of like, oh, that's a great video, and all right, next, yeah. So the challenge really was when that first happened. It's like, okay, we got to like keep up with this, so we got to just start pumping out more music and like, you know, refining the music, making the music just making it continue to grow with this goblin on the internet. So
a last question on the viral video. I'm just curious, how quickly did it kind of start to rack up views?
It was like, I remember on day one, it was like 10,000.
Wow.
Which was already more than much more than we could have anticipated. But like by the end of the week, it was at like 600,000.
Oh my gosh.
Because it hit the front page of Reddit. And when I saw that happen, I'm like, oh shit, it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing.
Wow. Yeah. That's huge. That's so big. And then once the video is going viral and it's like, okay, now we've got to make this into a live show. We got to get them to come out and do this. Did it take much convincing to have Dave join the band as the Goblin?
It took it a little bit. Yeah, it was a lot of discussions, figuring stuff out. We had our first tour offer ever upon doing that were like these festivals in Germany and the UK. So it was like really like there wasn't much of a ramp up like the way most bands have to that, where you've been playing club shows for years and you slowly grew it. It was like playing the corners of dark bars for like 7 years, and then suddenly, bam, we're playing Download Fest. And so we brought, I remember for that tour, we brought Dave and Brandon. Brandon shot a bunch of footage. We have a video for the song Power Chord that Dermer was shooting on his phone on stage with us while we were playing at the German festivals, Rock im Park and Rock im Ring and at Download. And so that was a kind of a huge kickoff to it. And like shortly after, like I think like maybe 7 months later, we were on tour with Limp Bizkit in the UK. And, you know, so we had these kind of crazy things you wouldn't expect for like a kind of melodic death metal sounding bands, the kind of situations you wouldn't find yourself in if you didn't have, you know, this whole Goblin thing going on. You know?
Yeah. But I mean, obviously the music again speaks for it too, because, but that's interesting. I didn't know if, and I'm glad you answered with that's cool that you guys got, you know, the Download Festival, those gigs right away. Cause I was imagining you guys going, okay, now we got to go play this little bar in the valley and bring the Goblin out and kind of try to get him, like, you know, like, they're like, oh, is this the band that had the viral, one of those things? But that's rad that it was able to kind of elevate the way it did from that video.
Yeah, that we were able to strike while the iron was hot, per se. Yeah,
sure. So from there, I mean, do you get signed to a record label out of that?
We've been doing this all ourselves this whole time.
Seriously, the whole time.
I run. You know, we had some label interest when that video first came out, and it's just kind of like the amount that was like the deals weren't good, and you know, like you know, we had some funds to put in ourselves, and it was just like, well, fuck them. Let's do this ourselves. You know, like the royalty rates were like, you know, fucking insulting that we were getting offered.
Right.
And so we just decided to do it ourselves. So I handle all the business side of it. Like, you know, I basically run our one band label.
Right. Mystery Box is the label that you guys created, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if that was on everything you did was through that then.
So
as far as like
we didn't name it an entity until like 2014 to 2015, but essentially everything we've done is self-released, and we're
self-released,
we handle everything in house, and
Wow. And was it difficult to kind of follow up the success of like that first, you know, big record, big song, and it's like, okay, now we still have eyes on us. Is it, you know, how are we going to continue this, or was that just not even a thought? Like we keep acquiring fans. Let's just keep.
It was tough because we weren't used to the pace that we would have to be at to keep up with that. So we had some hiccups and some, like, you know, I think we definitely lost momentum a little bit and had to kind of start up from ground zero to build it back up again and reinvent ourselves. Because we were so used to being kind of weekend warriors with it. You know, we all had jobs or school or whatever. We'd come back from work, and whatever time we had, we'd practice and play a couple bar gigs, you know. So suddenly turning this into a main focus of our lives and just going fully hard on it and consistently with it, that was like a thing that we had to adapt to. And then that led to a lot of member changes, because then suddenly it split the band into like, okay, are you going to go be a band guy, or do you want to keep your life the same? Mm-hmm. So that caused, you know, so that's when we started having more of a revolving door of musicians. We've kept the same lineup now for like, I think 5 or 6 years. So it's consistent now, but that during around 2014, 2015, that was a big time of uncertainty and trying to make sure we like met the expectations of the No One Survives video, trying to follow up with it while still growing as a band and not phoning it in, and trying to be creatively satisfied with it. It was a mess. So to be totally honest, but you know, the good thing is when we kept at it and we and we persisted, and even at times with like, I think after the heavy meta cycle, it was like definitely like, is this worth it? Are we, you know, we're almost not sure we were going to keep going. And, you know,
wow, really?
Yeah, we weren't sure. Yeah. Because it was, you know, obviously it's tough financially. It's, and, you know, there was a lot of uncertainty, but we kind of decided to just, you know, go even harder on the next album. Nikki, who started the band with Tim, he stepped it up huge and wrote the full album for Welcome to Bonkers that came out in 2018.
Oh, really?
And wrote, and he's always been, to me, he's always been like the most gifted songwriter that's been in the band. And, you know, he was trying to be a good bandmate and like, oh, we should all write ideas and everything. And eventually it was kind of like, you know, you write the best shit. And me and my manager were like telling him, you know, like you should just write the whole album. Like you've got it. Like your shit is always the best. And that was a huge change when we released Welcome to Bonkers 2018. We got to tour Warped Tour on it. We did Summer Slaughter on that album, and with the material we had in hand, that definitely we climbed out of the kind of the hole we had gotten ourselves into. So
is that the point? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that so that we kind of repeated that, at least that organization of work for this newest album. So we're like, okay, that works so well. We use the same producer, Jason, who's at this point feels like an additional bandmate with the band because we work so well together. So kind of we had to kind of, so you know, so this is all extremely long-winded way of saying, yeah, it's like to keep up with the No One Survives video, it took a lot of steps back before taking more steps forward to kind of to get this back to, because now it feels like it's consistent with where it was in 2012 when that video dropped. And we had a lot of soul searching to kind of get back here, kind of. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Cause I would imagine it gets rough. It's like, especially if you still have to work another job or you have to do these other things, it's like, you're trying to juggle, like, is this going to really work? Or like,
right. Is this worth putting our time into and losing our sanity over? And, and
obviously
eventually it came back to, you know, like this is like, this is a really awesome thing, and we just have to dial back on the things that don't make this as awesome. And and yeah, and
well, with not the new record, but the one prior to that, when when Nikki wrote the whole record, how did that change as far as like a live setting and the fan base? Did it just grow even more at that point, or was there like a big milestone or turning point there that you remember?
It seemed like the material definitely seemed to resonate better. Like, and I know the songs were streamed a lot more. It was like the songs just, you were all kind of very hook oriented, and yeah, they translated live really well. And it was a perfect album to have in hand when getting the opportunities we were getting, like Warped Tour and Summer Slaughter. So it felt like we were more easily able to convert fans, and then especially in it, like I said before, with the Goblin thing, it's like we definitely want to prove to people that we're musicians just as much as we are entertainers with
right.
So it's like, yeah, we know, and we've even been told this. We've been told this by people we've worked with. We're like, that they're like, at first I thought I went and saw your set at the festival, and I thought this was gonna be some lame thing, and then you guys are super fun, and you're actually all like competent musicians, and it was actually, and so I feel like we've learned to defy expectations of whatever cheesy thing you think this might be. And maybe, yeah, it still is cheesy, but at least if we're going to make it cheesy, let's, at least provide some kind of, songwriting.
Exactly. I mean, the reason, at least what I think, the reason why it's successful is because the music is there, and you guys are great players. If it was just, like I said, some guys, a Goblin, and then the songs weren't there, then it would have been a viral video that just kind of came and went.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, tell me about, so where were you guys at when the pandemic hit? I know in 2020 you released the System of Down cover, which is rad, but before that, were you on the road and were you rushing back to the States, or like where were you at in the beginning half of 2020?
Yeah, we were in Europe with a band called Glory Hammer. And so we'd done a string of headline dates in the UK, and then met up with them and doing direct support on that tour. And that was so, like, we got back in mid-February, I want to say. So like, and the pandemic hit just like 2-3 weeks later. So it was like,
oh, so you're home at least at this
point. We got home. We started to hear mumblings about this coronavirus thing, and we're like, that sounds crazy, but kept on. We get home, and we had festivals and everything planned for that summer, which obviously got canceled, but it did. We were already, that was meant to be the last tour of our album cycle.
Okay.
So it was kind of, we were already ready to get back in and finish up a new album. And Chop Suey that came out, Chop Suey we'd begun recording like a year before. It was like it was an idea we had, like, oh, it'd be so cool to do a Chop Suey cover. And we started recording it, and we hadn't, it was, the ideas were half there. It wasn't yet this kind of like EDM metal mashup that it is now. And something was missing. So we kind of, we kind of started on it, and just, we weren't sure where to go with it, because we didn't want to do a straightforward cover. So we were sitting on it, and then the pandemic happened, and, suddenly the only way for us to kind of be seen and heard was just to release more music. And it's like, hey, we've been sitting on this thing. Let's finish it and put it out. And so that really helped us kind of like stay relevant during the pandemic, I feel like, because that was a really tough time to, especially I feel especially bad for bands that had just completed an album and were about to go on tour, the pandemic, and then suddenly they don't have that opportunity to promote their album,
or they're holding it for a year and a half, right?
They're holding it forever. Yeah.
And then it's like, well, we wrote a whole other album, and of course, that year, like, what do we do now?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so just finished up the album cycle. You guys put out Chop Suey, and when do you start writing the new record that's coming? It's coming out in the beginning of April.
Yeah, April 1st. Yeah,
which is a perfect day for your band to release a record.
When I found out April 1st was April, when I found out that April 1st fell on a Friday this year, which was music release day, I was like, we have to. We're Nekrogoblikon. That's awesome. So this is low hanging fruit. We got to take it. Right. But Nikki had been writing for the new album since, I think, This Is It. He started writing right after we got off Warped Tour in 2018.
Wow.
And that one was like, all right, we definitely have to use that one. We all loved that song. And but he probably wrote like between like 30 and 40 songs for the album in total. Like not all completed ideas, but most of them already had like, at least a verse and chorus already in the bag. So we had a lot to work with, which we're not used to. Usually it's like, all right, here are the 10 songs we completed, or, this time it was Nicky kind of had, he had just a surge of creativity. And I think coming back from tour where he misses working as, writing, in his studio, I think it like coming back from tour, like it makes him hungry to write again. I feel like.
Yeah.
So, and that was 2018 was such a heavy, like probably our heaviest touring year yet. Which compared to most bands is not very heavy, but we still toured we did at least over 100 shows that year.
That's a lot of shows.
So like for us, it's a lot of shows.
That's a lot of shows.
So I think Nicky couldn't wait to get back and just get back to just writing and and not sleeping on a fucking tour vehicle,
tour bus, or wherever. When it came to recording the record, was that difficult at all, or when you started working on the recording process, were you able to kind of get together and rehearse the songs and then put it down?
It was interesting because the pandemic hit, and then I decided to go stay in Florida with my girlfriend.
Okay.
And our producer Jason also lives in Florida, and so like there was a time where it was like, all right, like let's try to limit travel as much as possible. It's everyone has to live in a bubble because everyone didn't know what was going on with the pandemic, how to gauge it. But I was like, talking to Jason, and we hadn't even fully decided a track listing for the album. We hadn't done the normal pre-pro process, like I had tracked a couple demos, but it was just kind of this decision, like everything's at a standstill and we're bored. And I just hit up Jason. I was like, and we were like, should we just start recording? Like, we're not done writing, but what else are we going to do? And like, Nicky hadn't written more ideas yet. And we were just kind of staring at this like pile of ideas. And I was like, well, let's start recording them, And so it was like a lot of like back and forth. Like I'd go over to Jason's, we would record like maybe 4 or 5 songs of guitar. And some of those songs were not even complete. They didn't even have an outro yet. We're like, all right, let's record what's written and then track it, hear it. And then that would inspire Nicky to like, oh, here, maybe I thought of an outro for this song based on the recording that you guys did of the song. And so it was a very piecemeal back and forth process that I wouldn't recommend, but the results were great. So, who knows, maybe we're like, hey, let's see how the album does. But, maybe we're like, hey, maybe that's exactly how we have to do every single album. But it was recording bit by bit and assessing and okay, now we have these kind of songs. We needed a happy sounding song because we always have fun major sounding songs on Necro albums, so we're like, all right, what else, Nicky, what else you got, and so we wanted to make it a really like just diverse listen. I don't like it when like 2 songs on an album sound too similar or so we wanted it to be every song to really have its own theme and really be its own thing and not be redundant and while still giving everyone what they've known to love about Necro, I definitely am always like checking out our streams and saying, all right, what songs are doing, what are our fans listening to, so it's given me a good idea of what people truly love about Necro, and a lot of it's what I love about Necro. So it wasn't terribly hard to kind of whittle down exactly what songs to use together. Okay. But Nicky
out
wrote
of the 40, it wasn't hard to like get the album-ish together.
There were definite standouts. There were ones that I just wanted, even in demo form, I wanted to keep listening to over and over again. I'm like, that's a sign we should roll with those. So that being said, Nicky wrote a ton of awesome stuff that didn't make it on the album. So, there's always a possibility of B-sides or what have you.
That's cool. Do you feel like there's less pressure on this record because of the fact that, it's not like you have to get something ready for a big tour, and well, at least at the time, there wasn't a lot going on.
Yeah, there was, and thankfully, because we put out Chop Suey, that bought us more time to keep working on it. I think the main pressure the main pressure we felt was just the pressure to just completely outdo ourselves and just crush the last album. And so that's ultimately, that's where it all comes down to. And being such a unique band, it never feels like we're competing with another band. You know, there's only one Goblin Metal band like us that does this style. So our only true pressure and competition is, all right, we got to just make an even better silly Goblin Metal record, you know?
And where did like I was saying earlier, the YouTube show that you guys have with right now, like is that a concept that kind of came out of with what you guys are doing with the band, or was that just something that he decided to go out? Because it's fun. I mean, it's really funny. He's like I said, he's quick. Yeah. And the production value of it is like perfect, and the subtle like jokes, like with the Chili's egg rolls and stuff, like the stuff like that, like I think are so funny. And like, is that something you guys all kind of write together?
So it's primarily Brandon and Dave that write it. Yeah. Okay. So they get to their, and they thought of the talk show idea back in like 2015, and we did a couple pilot episodes, and like a lot of it's like addition to like the Chili's stuff is, so much of it started the same way the band started, which is like a series of jokes that we just allowed to go too far. like wouldn't it be funny, just like what if John Goblikon just like loves Chili's, you know? That was an idea Brandon came up with, and we just kept rolling with it and kept posting it and just getting persistent about it, and like tapping Chili's on the shoulder on Twitter and everything. And then they eventually started embracing it and hooking us up with, gift cards and hooking us up with swag. So it's another just silly joke of, wouldn't it be funny, turned to life because we just decided to go for it.
Yeah, no, that's so funny. It's the concept. The one I watched earlier was with Bobby Lee. I love Bobby. He's from us. He's older than me, but he grew up in the same area that I grew up in, San Diego.
Oh, nice.
But he says something. He's like, "Did you get these egg rolls? Because I'm going to be on the show." Yeah. And John Goblikon goes, "Oh, you're from the Southwest. You're from the Southwest." He's like, "Oh, these are Southwest egg rolls."
That was my favorite moment from that one.
Yeah, it was so funny.
And that was improv too. Yeah, that wasn't planned at all. Yeah.
Oh, is a lot of that just off the cuff, him just kind of going?
So he comes up with like certain questions that are just like, all right, well, with this guest, I have to hit on this. Like, this is this is too funny of a joke. Like,
are the publicists gonna freak out when they hear me going off like this?
Luckily, everyone seems to understand that it's a comedic show, so no one comes on taking themselves too seriously or anything. But the interactions and where the episodes go is all just based on the chemistry between Dave and whoever the guest is, and so, and some of the funniest moments are just not planned at all, and they just happen. And like the first time his set started falling apart, like in the first two, I think it was in the very first episode, like that wasn't planned. Like it just like, oh really? One thing actually fell off, and we're like, that's funny. Like his set's just falling apart the entire time.
That just makes sense. And it works. It's almost like to me, I was like, oh, they must have just planned this because it's funny. Like
then we started planning it after that. Yeah. Okay. After the first item fell and we thought it was funny, we're like, all right, it has to be a thing that keeps happening. We just can't get his shit together, and his set keeps falling apart.
Oh man, that is so funny. Well, when the record comes out, you're doing a tour to support it?
Yeah, so it should be in all of June.
Okay.
We had a lot of different plans for when the tour would be. Even the pandemic and new variants. It's like, all right, no one's going to shows. Everyone's freaked out. Let's push this back, kind of thing. So, so June seems like June is when we're slated right now. I can't imagine that getting pushed back any further because we have an album to support. So, so it's June in the US, and then hopefully Europe is good for right after that, because we have a few festivals around this year. So hopefully those all still happen.
That's exciting. Are you doing the headlining tour? Are you supporting somebody in the United States?
US tour will be headlining.
That's what I thought. Okay. That is awesome.
Which we haven't done in a while. So I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Alex. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I love the video. And of course, I haven't had a chance to hear the record, but I like the song that I've heard thus far. And I can't wait to hear the rest of it. And what you guys are doing is just so awesome. And so it's hilarious, but it's all, like I said earlier a few times, just like the music. If the music wasn't there and it didn't make sense, then it wouldn't ever be, where it is now. But I have one more quick question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
I can think of a lot of things to say. I think, the best thing I could say, honestly, is to just put a lot of time into your art. That's really, there's so many different tips and tricks to get ahead, but like, everything begins and ends with the music. So, if put the most of your time into just your craft and what you're making, and make it and put an insane amount of time into it. And that's the best thing you can do, I think. And that'll get you further than networking, all the other stuff that comes with it. That stuff helps. Do those things as well. But I think that as long as your priority is on your art and your presentation and on connecting with people via that specifically, more than just, TikTok and whatnot, I think that's gonna, I think longevity wise, I think you'll have a better career that way.